And welcome back, everybody. Another edition here of the Auburn Undercover podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. My name is Nathan King, joined here by Jason Caldwell on what will be our weekly Roundtable game preview episode, presented once again by AU Club. We're excited to be sponsored with them once again and in partnership with them, and looking forward to bringing that back this fall. And so I'm excited for it to be game week. And as always, you guys go check out AU Club. We'll be partnered with them this fall, and we'll have a lot more for you guys in the coming weeks when we get on location there. And Jason, there's really nothing else. There's nothing else to talk about at this point. There is one point of focus right now, and that is Auburn and Baylor, Friday night season opener. It's been obviously an entire offseason awaiting here for what is an extremely interesting matchup. A couple teams that think they both have the opportunity to be pretty good, and an Auburn team that is looking to go make a statement on the road and capture what would be a statement win for the Hugh Freeze era to get things kicked off in year 3.
No, it's a big, it is. It's a big week. When you start thinking about, kind of direction, I talked to a couple of folks and they were asking me, about this team. I said, look, I know this is a more talented team. I don't think there's any question about that. And I think it's that way pretty much every position. Can you now back that up on the field? Does that show up? Can you make enough plays in clutch situations to find a way to win? That's really all that's left. And I think, look, Baylor's a really good team. I think especially offensively. I think this is a true test for this Auburn defense. But I think this is an Auburn team that to me, even going on the road, it feels like this is the better team physically. That doesn't always guarantee wins. But I do feel like going into this one that Auburn, you're like, hey, just go play sound football. Don't make a bunch of mistakes. Then you should be okay. They just haven't done that very much on the road in the past really 4 or 5 years. And this would be a good time to start that.
Yeah, I mean, strictly from a talent perspective, I mean, if you were to match Auburn up position by position, they would have the edge in most, if not every spot in this game. But what you mentioned is really interesting about this Baylor team, Jason, is that, defense gets a lot of attention because it's Dave Aranda, because we know who he is. We know, that it's a complex system and that he's one of the better regarded defensive coaches in the country. But under Jake Spavital, who is also a really highly respected coach on the flip side on offense, this was a top 20 scoring offense in the country last year at Baylor. They hit their stride midseason. Sawyer Robertson is a Mississippi State transfer at quarterback. He sort of unlocked everything for them, but at the same time, Bryson Washington was a 1,000-yard rusher for this offense, and they bring him back. They bring Sawyer Robertson back. They bring back 3 offensive line starters. I believe they bring back their top 2 receivers from last season. They also cleaned up a little bit in the transfer portal, bringing Kobe Prentice, brought in a Colorado State transfer at wide receiver that is expected to be a good player. And you're exactly right, Jason. Really big test right off the bat for this Auburn defense. And at the same time, this Auburn offense may have to go and score a little bit. They might have to keep pace on the scoreboard, because that's certainly, especially on their home field, Baylor's going to expect to put up points.
Yeah, no, I think you look and how do you, as an Auburn defense, first kind of keep this offense under check? Because you look at them and they average about 40 points a game the second half of last season. Now, a couple of those games, one of them against Houston was a 20-point game. So they got held, 20 a couple of times, and then a bunch of big scoring games. They scored 31 in a bowl game against LSU. Sawyer Robertson had, like 450 yards passing. Talented, deep offensive line, physical wide receivers, running back that returns that had a really good year last year. The pieces are in place for this offense to have an even better year in year 2 under Jake Spavital. Now, for Auburn, you saw his offense 2 years ago. I started thinking about it going, but different coordinator, a couple of different position coaches. And from a player perspective, I think the only 2 guys that even played in that game probably that are on the field are Kayan Lee and Keltry Falk. I think that's probably it. Yeah. So it's brand new for them. And so, we kind of had this discussion a little bit yesterday, but talking about Auburn in this game, and from a defensive standpoint, starting there for Auburn, it absolutely is about the running game, and keeping Baylor out of third and short situations, because I think this Auburn defense feels pretty good if you can put people in third and long. I think most every defense feels like that's a chance to go win. I think that's absolutely the recipe for Auburn against this Baylor team, is to try to keep them from being able to run the football and chew up some yardage.
Yeah, and on the flip side, it comes to a matchup that has probably been the most talked about one this week by both coaches, because Dave Aranda's press conference, I think some people on social media kind of misconstrued something he said, where he said, look, this game has to be, we have to keep Auburn from running the football. We got to make it so that they're in a passing situation. What he means by that is the same thing Hugh Freeze has been saying. It's exactly the same of avoid the third and longs, avoid the clear passing downs. I think some fans kind of thought, oh, well, Auburn's strength is in the passing game, so they should want to just go and throw it. But you and I were talking about this week. If Auburn goes, and Dave Aranda knows it, if Auburn's strength is their running game, if they have a healthy rushing total, I don't see much chance at all for Baylor in this game. And so that's where that sort of falls, is that keeping them from being a power running team. And look, and I thought Aranda did a good job of talking about it. This Auburn offensive line, particularly on the inside, I know Jarquez Hunter is gone, but those are the same guys that blocked for him last year. I mean, they did a really, really good job of that. He complemented Auburn's run blocking. I think it is going to be absolutely key, and Freeze has talked about it all week long. Like you said, every team on offense would like to avoid third and longs, but against Baylor in particular, they do some weird stuff. We've heard all week about disguised blitz packages and simulated pressures. You'd like to not have all of that. If you're Jackson Arnold in game one, you're the new quarterback on the road, you'd like to not have that in a bunch of third and longs. They're going to happen. They're going to get some, but staying ahead of the chains, boy, if you can get, some dirty yards, as Freeze would call them, out of Damari Alston and Jeremiah Cobb and Darrell Robinson, out of those guys every few plays, that's going to make a huge difference for this offense.
Yeah, I do feel like this is an offense that probably is better equipped to handle some of those third and longs, but you'd rather not have to do it a whole bunch. You're right. I think when you look at this receiving group and the things you got, you'd rather avoid that, because if you're third and long, then you've taken half or more than half of your playbook out of play. And the defense knows that. They know, hey, he's got to hold on to the football. They're not running the football. I mean, like, all those things are involved. And so, yes, that's going to be really important, because if you can dictate down a distance, then you can dictate what Dave Aranda and those guys are able to do on defense. And so I think that's a big deal for Auburn as well. Big deal for Jackson Arnold. This offensive line group, we've heard, look, they've struggled some in true drop back pass rush situations, like most offensive lines do. When it's 3rd and 15 and guys don't have to worry about the run, that makes it a little more difficult. It doesn't matter if you're in practice, if you're in a game or whatever. If it's 3rd and 15, the defense knows what's coming. They know you got to drop back, throw the football. So I think that's something that, you would like to avoid. And, I think for Jackson Arnold going into this one offensively, for him, I think, I'm kind of sticking to what I've been saying for a couple of weeks. I think it's about avoiding mistakes. I think these guys are good enough, and the skill players around him are good enough to make plays. I just don't think you can have those big mistakes. That's been a killer, and that's usually something that hurts you on the road immensely, is if you have those types. And so, can you avoid those mistakes and short fields? I think that's huge for Auburn's offense.
And by all accounts, from everything we've heard, Jackson Arnold did a really good job in the preseason taking care of the football. That might have been his strong suit of the entire preseason. I mean, very, very low total for him on interceptions, to the point where the defensive staff talked about it was difficult to work on and tinker with those things with their players, because the ball just wasn't being put into jeopardy that often. I mean, yeah, Jackson Arnold talked about it this week after practice. I mean, he's got a good grasp of this RPO system, but avoiding those third and longs, and like you said, keeping the playbook open. It keeps Auburn in, and that's something they've not been able to do super well the past couple seasons. Keeps them within this system, keeps them within the scheme that Hugh Freeze wants to run. He has the talent now at wide receiver to be able to do it at a high level. He hopes he has the talent at quarterback. But yeah, making life easier for Jackson Arnold is going to be a big point of this game because, I mean, and if they don't commit a bunch of mistakes, as we talked about, with the talent situation, I also just, talent aside, I just like Auburn matchup wise in a lot of spots in this game. I like Baylor's secondary was a weak spot. They gave up a lot of yards and they're banged up. Baylor's defensive line, talking with Garrett Ross, who covers Baylor for 24/7, he said the D line is a concern for his. He said that, that they weren't very physical. They got tossed around a lot last season. If you're an Auburn team trying to run the ball, I just think if you go down the line, there's a lot of things to like about Auburn in this game. And so it's about taking advantage of those and not giving Baylor extra opportunities and making sure you can kind of do those things in a vacuum instead of, hey, we've got 2 turnovers and 3 turnovers in the third quarter and now you're behind schedule.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You think about it from an offensive perspective, I think that's a big deal. Avoiding the pre-snap penalties, things that sometimes can be a killer in early season football games. 1st and 15s are those that put you, anything like I said, that gets you off schedule is a big deal early in the season, especially on the road against another quality opponent. Those will be difficult. And then the flip side, it's exactly what Auburn's defense needs to do. When you start talking about facing this Baylor offense, can Auburn create turnovers and create some of those situations? Because that's the one thing that they just didn't do last year. Played really good defense, did a good job in most games of kind of keeping the offense in the game. But it is really difficult for an offense to drive 80-plus yards every time they touch the football and score points. It's just hard. You got to create some of those opportunities for this offense and field position and doing some of those things. And so that's as important as anything. Sometimes it gets overlooked, but it's rare that you look up and see a team that drives the ball 85 yards 5 times in a game and scores touchdowns. Normally mixed in a couple of those are 30, 35, 40-yard drive, maybe one around midfield. Maybe it's an interception return. Scoring on defense, whether it's directly or indirectly, is the difference between being okay, being good, being great, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we know a lot of strengths about this Auburn defense, like you said, from last season. Creating turnovers wasn't one of them, but they did a lot of other things really well. The secondary, we believe, will be a strong suit for this team. You talked to Champ Anthony this week. He's ready to go. It does not sound like he will be on the sideline for this first game. We've seen him on that training bike a lot, but we expected him to be ready to go. Be tough for him to miss this first game. On the flip side, the other number one for Auburn on offense, Eric Singleton Jr., of course, the Georgia Tech transfer receiver. Really the only injury that they're keeping an eye on in this game. Hugh Freeze said today, I asked him on the SEC teleconference, I'll pull up the exact quote, but Singleton's going to play. He's going to give it a go. Now how much, we'll see. Freeze said, quote, he's not 100%, but getting better every day. Hopefully with more treatment today and tomorrow and all throughout the day, Friday, he'll be close to being full speed. He's not quite there, but definitely healthy enough to try to play. And going back to what we talked about before, if you're Auburn, you want this full arsenal. Baylor might be putting up some points in this game. Now, if Singleton's limited, Malcolm Simmons would probably take on even more snaps. He'd also take on that role at punt returner.
Yeah.
But you and I were talking, when Singleton got moving, got the ball in his hands, practicing some punt returns and stuff, he's moving. It's clear he's not 100%, but for 3.5 hours, he's going to give it all he's got. And I'd expect them to at least get something out of him in this game.
Yeah, we were talking about yesterday too. There's 72 hours, more than 72 hours removed from kickoff. So that's a lot of treatment time, a lot of rest and recovery. And so, yeah, I think, you limit him in the return game, probably limit him in terms of, probably playing 50 snaps. Maybe it's 30 snaps that you get him in a game in some situations where you want to get him either the football or use him in sets with guys. But yeah, that's the plus for this team. You got Malcolm Simmons, you got Bryce Kane, who's had a really good camp. I think a guy that's earned some opportunities there. And so you're looking, Horatio Fields coming in. You got Perry Thompson, obviously Cam Coleman. You got some guys there. And then Sam Turner, I think, is a guy that they trust immensely as a true freshman. So that's the good news. You got some options at wide receiver. And, yeah, I would expect maybe a little bit limited some on Friday night, but hey, come out there and you see what it feels like in warm-ups, and you're ready to roll, and then maybe turn him loose.
Another guy that they'll be assessing before warmups, and this is probably even bigger for Auburn, is Alex McPherson. You just really hate it for him because obviously he had that procedure back in December. Of course, it's been well documented at this point, ulcerative colitis for him. At his worst point, he lost 55 pounds, played in only one game last year. From everything we had heard and seen, it had been he had a good recovery, been gaining weight, had felt really good. Of course, Auburn was monitoring him, like he sat out a couple days here and there when he needed to. But it seems like of late, it's kind of flared back up for him. Hugh Freeze said on Tiger Talk this week he's kind of having some trouble keeping food down and keeping his weight up. So obviously, I mean, you hate to see that for Alex McPherson. We did see him at practice on Tuesday. He's making long field goals. So for him, it's just a matter of, I mean, he's going to travel, he's going to get there. And Hugh Freeze said it. He said, look, it's just a conversation pregame. Like, hey, what can you do? And whatever he can do, Auburn's probably going to let him do because they trust him. He's supremely accurate as a kicker. But there is a pretty good chance, Jason, Auburn's going to need Towns Magoo in this game. And you and I were talking about this week, what he showed last season is not indicative of the kicker we know him to be. Like, we got asked on the message board, hey, how has Towns looked in practice? He's looked awesome in practice. He looked awesome in practice last year before going 5 of 12. So, they might need him. They might have needed him already, though, even before this, for some longer field goals. So once again, field goal kicking is obviously maybe in a close game like this going to be important. But once again, that is a storyline for Auburn, as it was all of last season. And obviously they're hoping it goes in the right direction in this game.
Yeah, I think at a minimum, we know this. We know that Alex McPherson is not going to be Auburn's kickoff guy. So we know that one part of this thing is already decided, and it's going to be Towns Magoo to start with. But Connor Gibbs has a strong leg, could do that too. But I think we'll see Towns Magoo be Auburn's kickoff man at a minimum. I would guess, based on what we saw, on Tuesday, pregame. I think they'll talk, probably when they get to the stadium and then after pregame about what do you feel good with. I would guess just the strain to have to do that thing. I would guess somewhere in the 40 to 45 yard range would be about the extent of what Alex McPherson would be good from, based on what we saw yesterday. I mean, he can get it there, but it was a low driving kick a little bit. And so I think you probably go, hey, let's don't overexert this. Smooth, good swings, and make. Here's the thing: if you make everything from inside 40 yards, then you're going to be pretty darn good. And that's what Alex McPherson has done most of his career. If you can stay consistent doing that, hopefully he can continue to kind of get some strength back and continue to do some things as he's changed some medicines and done some things. So that's the most important part of this. The byproduct is that you're right. We think Towns Magoo is really good. We've seen other guys struggles at times, whether it's Anders Carlson. Wes Byram struggled in year number 2 for him. Towns Magoo has as much talent as any of these guys that we've seen in the last decade for Auburn kicking. He has that much talent. Now just a matter of going out building some confidence, and see if he gets that opportunity Friday night.
Yeah, it's the same guy who went 7 of 7 on field goals in his first A-Day game, including like a 50-yard walk-off to win it. I mean, we've seen him do it at an extremely high level. And like you said, it's not necessarily indicative one season. Anders Carlson had a season where he missed 10 field goals, and now he's an NFL kicker. And so Auburn's hoping that if he's needed in this game, but at the same time, and this kind of circles me to the last point I wanted to talk about, Auburn hopes to be in a position where it's not necessarily settling as it gets closer to scoring territory. And that's really where this thing all boils down to, is what Hugh Freeze has been talking about all offseason. He said that he went back, did some studying of their issues last year. He said he worked it into preseason camp, some of the stuff they fell short on. This is a team that, particularly on offense, on defense as well a little bit, but critical downs. This is, we're about to see, when things get dicey, how this team responds. It has been their biggest setback. It certainly was last year. Just felt like this was an everything but team. They put up a lot of passing yards. Jarquez Hunter ran for 1,000 yards, like did a lot of good things, but and it's now bridging that gap, seeing if Jackson Arnold can be a guy who's a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more consistent in those high pressure decision making moments. But as you've said, I thought you brought it up really well all offseason. Like, your job gets easier when you're Hugh Freeze if you've got better players, and they do have better players. So let's take all of these different factors. You and I believe Auburn is ready to have a better season because of all these things. But now, at long last, they've got to go out and prove it, and this will probably be a close game. And as such, they're going to have the opportunity to prove it probably in a few 2, 3, 4 really key moments in this game. We'll see how the offense does. We'll see what decisions Hugh Freeze, Jackson Arnold, we'll see what decisions they make, and if it's enough to get a win.
Yeah, no, I it's kind of funny this week because somebody mentioned, because we do photo galleries and we've probably done 8 of them or so in this camp area now into the first game. And somebody else just mentioned that they said, man, this team looks so much bigger and stronger. And I said, that's what happens when you get better players. Like there's no magic dust that strength and conditioning guys. Now, hey, Coach Dom does a great job, but there's no magic dust to go, hey, all of a sudden these guys look like NFL guys. No, you recruit guys that look like NFL guys and you help them along the process. That's what they've done. This is a roster that's much more capable, physical. I don't know. One more thing. What's the position that maybe you're most looking forward to seeing in this game? Because I have one. Mine is the defensive line. It's been the one that I've questioned since the spring. And then, Dallas Walker's been better. And we've heard some things on Jay Hardy. And then obviously the young guys. I mean, to me, that may be the position I'm watching the most, because I do think that they have a ton of upside, but it's still, I'm kind of like, okay, got to show me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, quarterback feels pretty off limits when you do questions like this, of course. I'll go with my question mark on the other side of the ball. I mean, running back, wide receiver is excellent, and it's fun to think up all of the explosive things this team could do on offense. Got to run the football. You just do not have a good offense if you can't run the football. They're very capable from top to bottom. And again, really interesting to hear Aranda talk this week about how much he respects their blocking scheme. And he talked about Auburn's interior guys, and he said, man, they'll bring a guard up at the line of scrimmage, and all of a sudden a tackle will come out of nowhere. And he used the word eject. He said they'll eject your defensive line, a D tackle out of the equation, and all of a sudden there's a big hole in the middle. Like, those guys, they know what to do. I know Jarquez Hunter's not here anymore. Damari Alston's going to be the number one guy. He will not be the only guy. I think one of these guys is bound to pop this season, but it's going to be a group effort from the O-line. Freeze has got to call the right plays. That they've got to get them in the right position. So that's a group I'm really looking forward to seeing. I'm a big believer in Darrell Robinson. So what role will he have? Is Jeremiah Cobb gonna find a niche, that works really well?
Yeah,
I think Damari Alston is capable of being a lead running back. He's clearly somebody who's put in the time and the effort. He's transformed his body. Former 4-star recruit. So that's where my vision will be on offense.
Yeah,
in this
I like
game.
that,
because I have no question about the wide receivers. I mean, I don't.
That's the least one for me is wide receiver and defensive back. To me, those are the two things I have maybe the least questions about. Offensive line, I'm ready to see. I do agree about the running backs. It feels like this group has, I don't know, we've seen in the past, whether it was Tank or even Jarquez, now they could run physical, but to me, this feels like even more of a sledgehammer group because of some of the things. Now, I don't think Jeremiah Cobb's that guy, but looking at Damari Alston, the way he's changed his body, and then you see Omar Mabson and you see those guys, Darrell Robinson's a bigger guy. It feels like a different type of running game a little bit, where it's like get downhill. Jarquez was a downhill guy, but he could do some things too. I don't know. I think I do agree. Finding the right running back and the right fit for maybe how this offense plays is still to be determined.
Yeah, and guys will get their feet wet as the season goes along. Like, turf toe is not easy to come back from if you're Darrell Robinson, and so we'll see what he looks like. I'll go on record right now that I think Omar Mabson's going to play on this team this year, and I think he's probably going to be pretty good on this team.
I think he may play Friday night. Heck, I don't know if he gets a bunch of carries, but I could see him getting a carry or two.
He has been far too impressive to not give him that opportunity. I was asked about from Garrett, our Baylor guy, for like a wild card player on both sides of the ball. I said Preston Howard offensively because I think And just watching them in red
Very.
zone on Tuesday, it's like you might do some leak out stuff here and there, and all of a sudden the guy who has really, really good hands and is giant has an opportunity. And then on defense, and Freeze kind of said what we've been saying all preseason, Rayshon Pleasant, and you came up to me yesterday and we're talking about something like, I don't know what it is necessarily. I'm not a football coach, and I talked to Wesley McGriff about him, and he said, he plays really sticky coverage. That's kind of all he said. I don't know what it is, but and somebody walked in the room. I don't know if you remember, Jason, like week 2 of camp when Pleasant came back, and told us like he was all over the place today.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but a late transfer addition from Tulane, he's been really good. And Hugh Freeze said he has probably been the biggest surprise of the entire preseason. Not only on kickoffs, he's going to make an impact on defense too, which a little bit of a surprise if you had told me that a few months ago.
It is, and I get somebody that walks up to me when we were at practice yesterday and goes, "Look, it's not a foregone conclusion that guy couldn't be a starter at corner." And we're like, "What?" I mean, like it shocked me that much because I'm like, "Hey, and Lee and Jay Crawford, those guys are kind of untouchable. The other guys have been good." And I'm like, I don't know if they're untouchable or not. Rayshon Pleasant has been that good, and so he's physical. He's built. God, it's funny to say, but he's built like a thick wide receiver almost. Like he's a bigger body guy at corner, and I know that's something that Wesley McGriff loves. And Jake, and Kay and Lee and Jay Crawford are small, but you look at Rayshon Pleasant is definitely different. I think you're right, Preston Howard, and I think Brandon Frazier too, because your team's going to have to pay so much attention to these wide receivers. They're going to have to give them so much attention, and I think we'll see some four wide receiver, no tight end sets. But I think one of those two guys will be on the field a lot with 3 wide receivers, and you're going to get single coverage from a linebacker probably because you don't have enough guys. You go those 3 wide receivers outside, that's a minimum of 5 DBs, in my opinion, because I don't think you can go single coverage across. I don't think you can single cover 2 of them. So I think you're going to get some one-on-one opportunities there. And then the other one, when he signed, it was intriguing. We saw a little bit of him last year, but I think Kieran Crawford is a guy that looks like ready to take that second-year step. And we've seen guys do that. Second-year transfer, second year out of high school, whatever it is. It happened a lot out of junior colleges in the past. I remember Nick Fairley's second year for him. It was like a completely different guy. Kieran Crawford kind of feels like a guy that may have that opportunity too. So that's the one thing about that question. There's a bunch of opportunities to answer that. You could go 25 deep.
Yeah, and that sort of underscores what this team is. Like lots of good players in a lot of different spots, and now it's about how it all comes together. Whether they're able to win in those critical moments, whether they're able to make the improvements that they wanted to from last season, and whether all of that will be worth 3 or 4 more wins than they had last year. I think you and I are both sort of in lockstep that we think that can happen for this team. In this game in particular, I was talking to you about it yesterday, like do I think Auburn can win this game? Absolutely. And they're favored for a reason. Like, Auburn absolutely can go win this game. I've just given a bunch of reasons why they can. I am still.
You're still in Missouri. Mode. You're still in Missouri, right?
I'm still in prove-it mode a little bit. I just think this game for me, and this is something Philip has talked about. Like, does the season hinge on this game? No. Does Oklahoma hinge on this game? No, nothing. It's not even an SEC game. It's not meaningless, but like, there's not. But for me, I need to see this team go on the road and beat a good team and play a complete football game and not crumble. And that will change some of my perspective about the Oklahoma game, about the Texas A&M game. You come away with a win Friday night, I'll be like, okay, all right, I can see it. And I think this team has a really, really good opportunity to do so for all the reasons we just mentioned, and not the least of which is the fact that, look, got dudes all over the field at all kinds of different positions. Speaking of dudes on the field, Jason, the 4-team captains we'll touch on really quickly were announced today. I think we did a pretty good job in predicting this. Damari Alston, Connor Liu, Champ Anthony, and Keldrick Falk. And so those 4 guys, great stories with every single one of those guys. I will say it's pretty cool that 3 of those 4 guys started their careers at Auburn. Yeah. That's kind of a cool thing. And Hugh Freeze made a point to say it on the teleconference today. there were 3 guys he said that were really close in getting votes. In my opinion, that would be some combination of Jackson Arnold, Horatio Fields, and Jeremiah Wright. Were kind of the 3 that came to mind for me. And Kieron Crawford, also this guy you mentioned.
Yeah, I think
as well.
I think there are other options there, but you mentioned Champ Anthony. I talked to him yesterday. To watch him become a vocal leader for this defense, it's been really interesting because, like I said, he's been riding a bike a lot of times, and then he gets on the field, and all of a sudden he just takes over. Like you look out there, and like he is running the show. That's not easy. And so, man, if Auburn can keep him healthy, keep him moving forward, he's going to play a big role. We saw last year before the injury, he was playing as well as anybody on the entire defense. A different role for him this year as a safety, but he's like, look, he's going to play nickel. He's going to play safety. They might bump him up to corner some. I mean, like he's going to be all over the place. So number one, I think is going to be a guy that people need to watch on defense.
Yeah, and I'm not, I won't shy away from saying that he's just one of my favorite guys on this team. It's impossible not to love Champ Anthony's personality. Great guy. And so for him to have made this journey, Christian had a tweet about it today, but it's like JUCO guy that was really skinny comes in and was honestly kind of a depth piece. I know you guys were like, oh, okay, they're going to add this guy. Sure, why not? To now coming back from that injury the way he did, looking to be a starting safety this year, now team captain, obviously a great story for him. And speaking of great stories, I mean, it's been a great preseason. I feel like, it's been a really fun time covering this team, and I'm just as excited as anybody to see what they look like on the field. You and I will be there along with our video intern Patrick Bing. I'm super excited to see what Waco's all about.
Yep.
And for what man, it's probably going to be a crazy atmosphere. I think there'll be a lot of Auburn fans there too. I didn't realize how small that stadium was, relatively speaking.
Yeah,
I would expect a good chunk of Auburn fans. It's gonna be, man, Friday night. It's gonna be a really good time. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, looking forward to it as well, and just kind of getting this thing rolling.
Yep.
It'll be a fun time Friday night. So everything a day earlier this week. So yes, so it's good times, and we'll have our thoughts, coverage, photos, videos, everything from Waco, and keep it locked in.
All of it. We're still running a promo for 50% off auburnundercover.com. We're going to have, like Jason said, everything from top to bottom. I'm going to put together like the travel roster as I see it too, because I figure that's maybe something people will like to see. So for our subscribers as well, we have like a pregame notebook we always do from our thoughts and observations. Jason's down in the field. Sometimes he'll shoot me a call with something he sees, and we'll put it up in the story. So we've got it covered for you guys. Really looking forward to it. We usually jump into like the week's other games. I'm not sure we'll do that because we're already at 33 minutes. What Texas Ohio State is.
I'll say, what about an intriguing game for you? One of those. I mean, there's a bunch of them. LSU Clemson is fantastic game. That's a really big one. That Clemson defense is I think could be really good. I don't know. A lot of people are going, hey, LSU's ready. That's a tough place to start to kind of jump in there and make a run for what people think could be a playoff push if you go up there and get pushed around by Clemson. And I think that's a tough one.
I will just say as well, a couple of things. Alabama in its recent history has not done a great job playing really rainy games against teams with like somewhat good defenses. The forecast is like very overcast. Supposed to be some rain when they play at Florida State. Florida State was awful last year, and Alabama's a lot better than them. And I think Alabama's best team in the SEC if they have a good quarterback. But you never know what's going to happen in week 1. So that one at least has some eyeballs. Also, keep your eye on Kentucky is a 7.5-point home favorite over Toledo. If that tells you anything about the state of affairs for Mark Stoops right now. So that'll be an interesting one as well. And then going into Sunday, Miami hosting Notre Dame is an intriguing one for me as well.
Big game too, yes, to see, and I wrote a little bit about it today, but quarterbacks everywhere. I think the top 8 teams in the country, 6 of those teams have a first-year starter, essentially. Dante Moore at Oregon started 5 games at UCLA 2 years ago. Arch Manning has started 2 games. Gunnar Stockton has started 1. That means, Ohio State 0, Julian saying, Alabama 0. Like you have a bunch of teams that have very little or no experience at quarterback, and these are the top 8 teams in the country. Somebody in that group is not going to work. There's no way for it to. It's going to happen. So what's it look like? Who falters? Notre Dame's the other one. CJ Carr hasn't played. Somebody's going to struggle. And does it happen right out of the gate? If it does, you drop one of those games early. I mean, it's a very interesting time because so many teams have so many new players. I mean, I mentioned, I think I counted up. I think Auburn has 43, maybe in between transfers, freshmen, some of those things. I think it's in the low 40s number. Somebody's like, man, that seems like a lot. Well, Georgia has 35 and Alabama has 33. That's just the way of the world. Everybody's going to have a bunch of new players every year. And so how quickly can you make everything adjust and fit?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the big, I mean, look, this game would be difficult for Auburn anywhere on the schedule. But I thought when we did our schedule ranking, Christian's logic of having this be the most difficult game on the schedule, I thought was pretty sound of like, hey, all those new guys, they've got to work right away, and you've got to go score some points on the road against a Big 12 contender. And so I think that point absolutely stands. I felt that way about quarterbacks just in the SEC when we were talking about them this summer. I think between Georgia, Texas, and Alabama, like what are the odds all 3 of those guys just work seamlessly? I'm not saying any of those teams will be bad, but I think there's a pretty good chance one of them will be not so great. Yep. My lean to that, honestly, is kind of Georgia out of those 3, but we'll see. We'll see. I kind of have no doubt about Arch Manning. I don't know if he's going to win the Heisman, but I just kind of think he's got everything around him. Like I don't really have that much of a doubt. I also think Julian Sayin is going to be awesome at Ohio State. So for that reason, that game's going to be incredible.
A lot of fun.
We're going to try to catch all those games on Saturday. It's going to be a weird travel. It's going to feel different for us.
Yeah. Some of that may be on a plane Saturday. So hopefully we can get coverage and watch some of those while we're flying back. So.
For sure. We'll see if we're flying back talking about an Auburn win. Auburn and Baylor, 7 p.m. Central Time on Fox. I hope when you're listening to this is your cue to get Fox figured out on your TV if you have YouTube TV. Please do not do that on Friday and make that a stressful thing. I don't know what to tell you because I haven't figured it out myself.
Has a 7-day free trial, the Fox line thing, so that might be an option. Hopefully they get it straightened out and folks don't have to do that.
Surely, right? The push will come to shove and they'll figure it out. Yeah, don't worry about it on Friday. Do it now, please. Don't put yourself through that stress. For Jason Caldwell, I am Nathan King. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the first edition of the Roundtable preview of the season. We are really, really excited for this thing to get underway. Go check us out at auburnundercover.com, and we will talk to y'all from Waco.